Hey there, vagabonds! Welcome to a special bonus episode of The Radio Vagabond. We just wrapped up 4 episodes from my time in Iceland, a country that's as jaw-droppingly beautiful as it is, let's be honest, expensive. But is there a way to travel this pricey paradise on a budget? That's the question I'll be tackling today with someone who knows a thing or two about affordable travel. In this episode, I'm thrilled to welcome back my good friend Matt Kepnes, aka Nomadic Matt, to the podcast. He's been on the show twice before, and today he is here to talk about the brand new updated version of his best-selling travel guide, How to Travel the World on $50 a Day.
Meet Paula on an epic journey around the world. This is The Radio Vagabond.
I'd already heard the rumors, so let's start back in Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland. I drove up to a random supermarket called 1011 and walked inside to check the prices of random things. And as I'm getting out of the car and walking inside, let me just say that this episode is supported in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you travel cheaper. When you need a place to stay, just go to Hotels25.com and search all the big sites in one simple place. And hey, now you can even find the best prices on flights. Hotels25.com.
Okay, here's a half a liter of Coca-Cola. It's €2.50, around the same in dollars, 2.7. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit more expensive, but not crazy expensive. Okay, then there's a regular beer, a small beer, and remember that this is a supermarket price. It's $3.8. I think that's expensive for a supermarket. A liter of milk is $2.4, 2.3 euros. And for you Americans, I know that you have no clue what a liter is. 6 eggs, $4.2, around 4 euros. Now we're getting up there. A box with 3 packs of microwave popcorns is $5.1, 4.9 euros. A regular size Pringles Original is $4.6, 4.4 euros. And let me just grab the last one. A pizza, frozen pizza, Dr. Oetker, pizza traditionale. A regular, I guess that's around 12-inch, is $6.1, 5.8 euros. So, yeah, I think things are slightly more expensive. Some things are very much more expensive, but overall, yeah, it is more expensive here.
Matt Kepnes is one of the most well-known names in travel. He's the New York Times best-selling author of How to Travel the World on $50 a Day and the creator of a massively popular blog, Nomadic Matt. Over 10 years, he's been inspiring millions to see the world without breaking the bank. And now he's back with a completely revamped version of his iconic travel book. It's not just an update, it's almost an entirely new book, reflecting on how travel has changed since the pandemic, with fresh tips, destination advice, and even some new ways to save. Welcome back to the Radio Vagabond, Matt. You've been traveling like a pro for years, but how much do you travel these days?
I like to take one big trip a quarter and then go away for like weekends. So one big trip meaning like a couple of weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks. Mm-hmm. Last year I did maybe 5 months on the road. So that's almost half the year. But this year my goal is to break it up more. Mm-hmm. It's just hard to have a routine when you're always on the road. And I got to the point where I just kind of enjoy my bed. I like going to the gym. I like working out. I like being healthy. It's a lot harder to date when you're always on the move.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So part of the reason I want to be less nomadic is I'd like to maybe start a family or something like that.
Yeah. But you're still Nomadic Matt.
Yeah. I mean, I say these things, and then I waited for 5 months last year. So
Yeah. I'm here in Thailand, and I'm taking a break from fast travel, and I owe some of that to you. Well, part of my own experience. Now, we met the first time when I've been traveling a week, and now it's been almost 9 years. And I remember when we met in Stockholm, you said, "Oh man," because I showed you my plan, and I said, "It's too fast, Palle. You need to slow down because you didn't go all the way to, I think you said, India to look at your computer the whole time. You need to take some breaks and not travel too fast." So I'm taking your advice, Matt.
good, I stand by that.
Yeah.
That, what's the point of traveling if you're just gonna be in coffee shops?
Exactly. As we're recording this, I'm in Chiang Mai, Thailand, a place that's a hotspot for nomads like me. And one of the reasons that it's so popular is how affordable it is. And you're releasing a new book, and it's a massively updated version of your New York Times bestseller, Travel Guide, How to Travel the World on $50 a Day, except for this edition has got a new name. So why do you think it's time for a new edition where it's called $75 a day?
Yeah, the book, as you said, it's called How to Travel the World on $75 a Day. The last edition of the book came out in 2017, and that was a pretty tight turnaround printing time. So I was researching it and updating it end of 2016 and the beginning of 2017. And as we just talked about, a lot has changed since then. COVID changed how we travel. Not only is it more expensive to travel, I mean, you have natural inflation anyway, but just you have COVID-related inflation that spiked the cost of everything. We see that in our own lives. But a lot of companies went under during COVID.
Right.
A lot of methods for travel changed. And since then, a lot of new companies have come online for new ways to travel. For example, since COVID, Facebook groups have become really popular as a way to connect with locals when you travel, as well as get free accommodation. We've kind of gone back away from like apps and services to just using Facebook groups for travel partners or accommodation. There used to be all these ways to get travel discount cards, and you'd have like the VIP backpacker card. Those are all gone. And so I really wanted an edition that spoke to how we travel today, that not only reflect the prices of today, but the methods for saving, getting off the beaten path, and connecting with locals when you travel. Because what was there in 2017 isn't there today.
And the first edition came out 11 years ago in 2013. So a lot has happened since then. But you have done over the time different updates of the book. But this is a whole revamp, right?
Yeah, this book, I imagined it to be like, I'll just edit the prices and take out companies that don't exist, like STA Travel. It'll be easy. Nope, I had to basically rewrite this book from scratch because so much has changed. The format, the structure of the book is the same. It still follows, what you do before you go and what you do when you're there and that. But the content, the words, 80% plus different. It took me a lot longer. I dumped whole chapters from the book, the old edition, and I had to write entire new chapters on points and miles, credit card, banking, ways to save. There's all these new services. It was just so much has changed. I mean, another example, when the last edition came out, Laos didn't have a train. Now they have a train.
Yeah.
So you have to talk about that. Cambodia has revamped their train system. Got to talk about that.
Yeah.
So, not only are there new companies, but destinations have changed so much, in 8 years.
And they're expanding the trains here in Thailand as well.
Also mentioned in the book, so much is different that it ended up being a much larger project than I thought it would be.
Yeah. Now, I've asked you back on the show because I've just been doing these episodes from Iceland, and that's a country that has a bit of a reputation of being, not cheap. Is it even remotely possible to travel to Iceland on $75 a day?
Is it remotely possible? Anything is possible. Is it likely? Probably not. Not for your average traveler.
No.
The $75 a day is a global average. You're traveling the world. So you're going to make up spending more than $75 a day in Iceland by spending $50 a day in Thailand or $30 a day in India.
Yeah.
So it's a global average. But that said, Iceland, there are ways to save money. The hitchhiking culture is very strong. There's a website, Semfrida, which allows you to hop rides with locals. You split the gas money. Wouldn't do this in the winter, but you can go camping, which allows you to keep your accommodation costs down. Just don't drink, and you don't have to worry about liquor. And then you grocery shop for food. So it is possible. It's just not going to be convenient. And, because of the nature laws there, free access to basically everything. So you can spend, a time in Iceland hiking and sitting in public hot springs and all this stuff without spending any money.
Mm-hmm. And as we heard before, when I went to the supermarket, some of the things were expensive, but I wasn't blown out of the room like I thought I would be. It was expensive, but not crazy expensive compared to the rest of the Western world.
Exactly. They do have high import taxes on a number of goods, but you can live affordably there.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're eating out every meal, it's going to get pricey. If you're staying in hotels, it's going to get pricey. But there are ways to save. In fact, I find that very expensive countries have lots of ways to save money because locals need to live on a budget too, right? They live in a high cost society. So one thing, for example, that people do in Iceland, they do this all over Scandinavia, is because of the strict food laws, a lot of grocery stores have to get rid of their food before it's actually spoiled, right? So it's not that it's bad. It's just like the law requires...
Yeah, once the date stamp gets close, then they drop the prices.
Yeah, so what you find is like a lot of people buy their chicken and expensive meat or frozen produce. Mm-hmm. They look for it to be quote unquote expired.
Yeah.
Because they know it's not expired, but it's like half the price. And so there's creative ways like that. And so how do Icelanders save money? Got to Google that and you find that stuff. But little things like that do matter.
Yeah, I know that there's an app in Denmark. I don't know if it's international. It's called Too Good To Go. I know that my kids use it all the time where they just get alerts. And I must admit, I don't know if that's a thing in Iceland or anywhere else in the world, but maybe something similar.
Yeah, I don't know if that exact app exists, but I'm sure there's a local version. And in the States, we've started to see a lot of new companies come online about food waste too, doing something similar. Mm-hmm. So that's another way.
Yeah.
Gotta keep moving. If travel is your passion and you want escapism while still upholding your work and family responsibilities, you can travel vicariously from the comfort of your own home. This is the Radio Vagabond Podcast. We'll be right back.
First, a few words about what I do when I'm not doing the Radio Vagabond.
This is a guy who's been crafting compelling audio for decades.
It makes you wonder, though, what's it actually like to work with him? Is he, really intense in person?
From everything I've read, he's actually very collaborative. It's not about him imposing his vision on you. It's about working together to bring your vision to life in the best way possible.
So it's more like he's your podcasting Sherpa or something, guiding you to the summit.
Exactly. He's there to offer his expertise, to push you creatively, but ultimately, it's your story to tell.
It makes you feel a little better. Because honestly, after learning all of this, I kind of want to start a podcast now.
You should.
Just to see what kind of magic we could create together. Is that weird? It's like suddenly I could hear all these sounds in my head, all these stories just waiting to be told.
And that's the beauty of podcasting, isn't it? It's such a powerful medium, and it's only getting bigger.
So, for anyone listening who's feeling that same spark, maybe it's time to dust off that podcast idea you've been sitting on. Or if you've already got a podcast, but you're looking to level up, really take it to the next level.
Well, sounds like Pally Go might be the guy to talk to.
He might just be the missing piece of the puzzle.
Let's make some audio magic together. Drop me a line and let's get started. You can see more on my company's website, radioguru.co.uk. Another thing I'd like to talk to you about that I know that you address in the book is something I talked to the locals about, over-tourism and how that's becoming a problem for them. And they're getting so many tourists in a country with so few people. And they said that it was almost a blessing for them to get their country back during the pandemic. You're talking about over-tourism in your book and how to be a responsible traveler, right?
Yes. That's another thing I've added in. It was in the third edition, but in this new edition, I really went in more detail about it, especially because different regions are dealing with over-tourism in different ways. One of the parts of the book is it breaks it how to save money down by region. So Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, Europe, and then Europe is Western, Eastern, Central, Scandinavia, et cetera, throughout the world. But every region is dealing with over-tourism differently. So I've included specific information for that in the book too. But you're right, since COVID, there's been this boom in travel. I mean, 2024 had more global tourists than 2019.
Yeah.
So the world wasn't meant for so many people moving around.
How do we become more responsible as travelers?
One thing I think about a lot is waste, right? And it's kind of weird to talk about, but the sewage system of a destination is meant for the people that live there, not the added millions of people that visit. So I think about like water usage. I think about turning off the lights, plastic uses, just trash in general. That's a huge problem. So minimizing your waste impact actually goes a long way to helping the infrastructure, the destinations you're going to. Another thing I think about a lot, is going off peak. Don't go to Europe in the summer if you can avoid it. Go in the shoulder season.
Yeah.
And listen to like locals. There's no information in the world that you can't find. Type in like over tourism, insert destination. Because there will be a news article somewhere about locals' reaction to tourists. So you'll get a sense of like, okay, like people in Venice aren't really appreciative of cruising or Airbnb or huge walking tours or day trippers, whatever it is. And so I try to avoid that kind of travel. I also try to get outside the city centers. You have to just be more conscious of it. I get if it's your first time in Barcelona, you want to see all the big stuff and you want to stay there. But I think it's important that we also listen to the locals and kind of do the tourism that they want. I mean, tourism is a double-edged sword. It's not that like people hate the fact that you're there. They just want to make sure that you're not ruining their place and you're being respectful of local customs.
Exactly.
And when it really comes down to is just they don't want you raising their cost of living. And so in a lot of places, especially in Europe, where they're really just worried about like apartment rental services.
Yeah.
Not just Airbnb, anything really, that's taking housing stock off the market. Small destinations like Santorini, they're worried about the cruise ships just flooding, the people in bad behavior, right? Crazy that, you have all these influencers that will see a sign, don't take a photo on our white roof. And then they walk on the white roof to take their photo shoot, with the Greek houses and the white and blue. And it's like, this is why people don't want tourists to come.
And I remember when I was in Lisbon, I was doing a walking tour, and the tour guide, he said, we really don't like the digital nomads. And that was, I think, the first time I heard it. And because Lisbon is such a popular place for nomads. And I thought, well, all these people are coming in here spending money. Why don't you like that? But like you said, it blows up the prices for the locals. And if you're coming in with an income that's not based on what you make in Portugal, you're able to afford more than the locals. And that way the price goes up. As travelers and as nomads, we need to be respectful of that.
Yeah, the digital nomad thing is kind of also a double-edged sword. I mean, for example, I have been a digital nomad for many years. I lived in countries and I didn't pay taxes there. But I remember when I lived in Thailand, this was pre these apartment rental services, right? And so like I rented an apartment from a local, so to speak. I didn't go through a company. Like I had to find a friend of a friend of a friend who like knew a guy in Bangkok. I signed a lease. Whereas now you have not only the Verbos and the Airbnbs of the world, but you have all these like polished rental services. There's one like Blue Home or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that's housing stock that gets taken off. And so like I totally sympathize with locals who want people to stay long term. Because if you're in Lisbon for 4 or 5 months, you're spending a lot of money at local businesses. Mm-hmm. But you're also not paying taxes for services, and you're taking local housing stock off. So I think there needs to be a better balance, and I think more regulation from governments, but I also think better behavior from digital nomads, where it's a less extractive mentality.
Yeah. So Matt, the book comes out on March the 25th, 2025, in case you're listening to this later. And it's currently available for pre-sale. I'll make sure to put the link in the notes section for this episode and on the radiovagabond.com. Is there anything you want to leave us with? Like, the world has changed so much. Is there one piece of advice that wasn't there when you did the last edition in 2017 that's there now that we should embrace and take to heart?
So much of the world has changed since the last edition, since COVID, that I think there's so much information now. It gets easier and easier to find information, but I would encourage people to not live by TikTok or Instagram and try to just go out and explore on your own and enjoy the serendipity of the world and let the day unfold. But I would also say that if you are looking for advice from the internet, try to find local bloggers and creators. That's not to say like global writers like myself don't have good information, but there's been such a rise of like the local influencer, especially when it comes to a restaurant scene, that they're going to have the best information on like what's hot and like what's good. That really search that information out over anything else.
Matt, thank you so much for coming back on the show, and I hope to see you somewhere in the world at some point.
Yeah, or pass my cross this year at some major travel event.
See you later. The book, How to Travel the World on $75 a Day, will be in shops and online on March 25th this year, 2025. And you should consider checking it out if you're into budget travel. And that's it for this one. In a few seconds, it will be revealed where we're going next on the regular Travel Tuesday episodes. But I also have more from the Extraordinary Travel Festival in Bangkok, where I have some conversations with even more cool, amazing travelers. Plus, soon we'll be bringing back Flashback Friday with some episodes from the archive you might have missed.
We will now be arriving at the end of this installment of the Radio Vagabond. The next stop will be Africa.
My name is Palabo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya.
Mind the gap between this episode and the next one. Radio Vagabond. Produced by radioguru.co.uk.